Hey ho, everybody. Ooh, hang on one second. There we go. That's a little bit better. Hey, babe. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. What are we talking about today? We're talking cocktails today. Nothing really fancy. Unfortunately, I don't have a guest speaker lined up. I slacked off a little bit, not gonna lie. Anthony, thanks for joining, buddy. What's up? We're talking cocktails today. So I'm just gonna make a couple of my favorite cocktails, riffs on cocktails, teach you guys that you can still do really, really simple things at home, and you can create some of those cocktails that you get out in restaurants, at cocktail bars, things like that. So, first off, classic cocktail, most of you are going to know this, the Negroni, right? The Negroni, equal parts gin, Campari, or whatever red aperitivo bitters you like, and sweet vermouth. Great. So, I keep it pre-batched. It's all spirit, so it's not going to go bad. I keep it. Just make sure you're using a well-sealed bottle, and then all you have to do is pour it out on ice, and boom, you finish your workday. Instant cocktail. Kind of hard to go wrong there. Now, most of you know me, and if you joined in on Monday. Today is Wednesday. Losing track of my days. If you tuned in or if you watched the video on Monday with Ray Daniel of Beam Bourbon Canada, we talked about bourbon and barbecue, and if you've known me long enough, you know that I have a love of bourbon. Where am I going with this? I'm glad you asked. The Negroni is actually a family of cocktails. So the Negroni with gin is what we know. There's a twist called the Old Pal, where it's rye whiskey, Campari, sweet vermouth. There's the Sbagliato, which actually means mistake or error in Italian, because somebody actually ended up putting Prosecco in a Negroni. And then we've got my favorite, and I saved this for the last because it is my favorite, the Boulevardier. The Boulevardier is equal parts bourbon, Campari, and sweet vermouth. Now, I'm going to riff it up, and I'm going to go one step further, because just like in the movie Spinal Tap, I like to go a little bit louder and go 11 across the board. And if I've cooked for you, if I've made cocktails for you, if you've hung out with me, you know I like to go a little bit over the top, because I'm a little bit fancy and a little bit extra like that. So, today, we're going to make a riff on a Boulevardier. So, I've got my mixing glass. And yes, I got out my fancy bar tools. If you don't have them, that's fine. Use a mason jar. Use Tupperware. Use a plastic bag. Whatever. We're staying home. We're staying safe. Boom. All right, so what I've got here is a special release of Maker's Mark. And I actually just cracked this for the first time. So I'm actually going to take a little bit of a taste. And this is something you can always do because you're going to like your spirits a little bit differently. Each bourbon, each gin is going to taste a little bit different if you're using a mixed gin versus a London dry versus a dry. So you might want to vary the ratios or the amounts that you put in any particular cocktail. So this is the Maker's Mark Private Select. 55 proof, so it's a little bit higher proof, a little bit more heat than your standard bourbon, which is usually between 44 to 46, 47. Still really, really good. It's got a little bit more spice, so I am actually going to change my ratios a little bit for this particular cocktail. So, instead of going 1 ounce, I'm only going to go 3/4. So 3/4 of an ounce of my bourbon. Now, if you're using a different bourbon, if you're using Wild Turkey or Four Roses, Jim Beam Black, Woodford Reserve, Old Forester, that's great. Use what you like. Taste it first. Taste it and play with it. That's what Ray said. Taste your whiskey, know what you're drinking, and then mix it the way you want to mix it. There aren't real hard and fast rules around some of this, especially these days. And okay, now, I'm using Campari. So I'm going to go 1 full ounce of Campari. So I've got 3/4 bourbon, 1 ounce of Campari. And now, in place of sweet vermouth, Tia Maria. And yes, if you've seen my work channel, you know that, hey, I've done this cocktail before. This is just a really cool riff on the Boulevardier. You can use Tia Maria in place of a sweet vermouth. And this actually gives it a bit more of a chocolatey note. I know Tia Maria is a coffee liqueur, but in the presence of this cocktail, it sort of transforms itself and becomes a little bit more chocolatey, a little bit more cocoa. Hey, Miss Rebecca J, thanks for joining. So I've got my ingredients in here for my riff on a Boulevardier. I'm going to grab my ice and my glass. Grab yourself a cocktail and we'll be right back. There we go. So I've got my ice cubes. I've got my spoon. All right. I'm going to mix this up. I like to stir for 10 to 15 seconds. You want a little bit of chill. You want a little bit of dilution. Hello, Mr. Galloway. How are you, sir? Happy Wednesday to you. All right, so I've got my pre-chilled glass with my King Cube. And yes, anybody of you in the industry will recognize the glass from the bottle. This is a Spirit of York glass. All right, and here we go. This is our Tia Maria Boulevardier. So we've got our Maker's Mark Bourbon, our Campari, and our Tia Maria. This is now going to taste a little bit like one of those Terry's chocolate oranges. You know that orange that you smash at Christmas? I love the dark one. If you know me, you know I love dark chocolate. So, cheers. So good. So smooth. That bourbon backbone is there. The vanilla notes from that bourbon come out. They play really well with the vanilla that's in Tia Maria. And then that Campari still gives you that bitter orange note. I was not going to waste that little bit of bourbon. Now, still encouraging responsible consumption. And yes, I am about to make a second cocktail. We still want to be responsible. So I'm actually just going to set this Boulevardier aside for another day. Yes, we do have a bromance. It's bromantic. I miss my bro. And I'm doing this inside. I checked Wes. It's just a little bit too windy out on my balcony. And it's too hard to see in here with the sunglasses on. So this is a sunglass for you. Just because I'm thinking of you, buddy. All right. Now, this is stirred down. This is what we call spirit forward. Delicious. Maybe not the most refreshing. While the Negroni is considered an aperitivo, a before dinner style drink, the bourbon, this just tastes a little bit more like an after dinner cocktail. Yep, I'm right. It's an after dinner cocktail. Or, as one of my good friends, Ken, calls it, evening-y. All right. And we'll talk about Ken another day. So, our next cocktail. Where am I going? It's beautiful out, right? I think the seasons are finally catching up. We're starting to get a little bit of spring, summer type weather. It's gorgeous outside right now. We're supposed to have a fantastic weekend. And to me, that calls for a fantastic, bright, refreshing cocktail. So, where am I going? I'm not going to go to a brown spirit. I'm going to a clear spirit. Romeo's Gin. Canadian-made gin. Fantastic. It's got all of that juniper and that spice note, but it still has lots of fantastic citrus in it. I love this gin for its citrus notes and the fact that it makes such a refreshing cocktail for that reason. So, I'm going to take 2 ounces of my Romeo's Gin into my cocktail shaker. I'm going to take some freshly squeezed lemon juice. Always squeeze your juice freshly. That concentrate stuff you buy in the green bottle just doesn't cut it. In a pinch, if you have to, you can use it. You need to mix it with a little bit of water to make the flavor hit properly because it is from concentrate. But if you can get your hands on fresh lemons, squeeze fresh lemons. All right, so I've got my fresh lemon juice in there. Boom, a bottle of pink liquid. This is actually a raspberry syrup. And now Wes knows where I'm going with this one. We're making a cocktail that goes back to pre-prohibition days. So this is before Prohibition. This is a cocktail called the Clover Club. All right? This is actually closer to a raspberry coulis. So I just took some raspberries I had in the fridge that were, mature, shall we say. They were still good, but they weren't as fresh and young and, crisp as they were when I first got them. So, and I didn't want them to go to waste because we don't want to waste good produce right now when we're not out shopping as much as we can. You never want to waste a good raspberry. You never waste a good raspberry. So, after that, we've got an egg white. Now, I'm not using an egg. I'm actually using cartoned egg whites because when you make as many cocktails at home as I do, for video purposes only, again, responsible consumption, you waste a lot of yolks that way in the shell and blah, blah, blah. So I just find using cartoned egg whites makes more sense. I'm gonna grab my ice. We're gonna give this a double shake, once with ice, which is the wet shake, and then once without ice. This is a controversial thing. Wes might tell you that I'm wrong. In fact, he probably will, just to, argue. But you can go dry then wet, wet then dry. It's a personal preference. Sit tight. All right, boom. I actually had this already set, kind of like they do on cooking shows. All right, here we go. All right. So that will chill and dilute the cocktail. It'll help emulsify that egg white. I'm going to grab my strainer. I'm going to strain it just into the other half. Look at that beautiful pink color that you're getting. All right. And then I'm going to shake it once without ice. This is going to increase that emulsification factor of the egg, as well as, there we go, as well as add air. And that's how when you get those egg white cocktails, they have that beautiful white meringue-like, foam-like head on top. All right, shake it up. Haven't done this in a while. There you go. Just to make sure you're all awake. Hey Courtney, how you doing? Did you have fun on the beach today? If you didn't, I don't feel bad. If you did have fun, well, good for you. Courtney is a fantastic bartender and a dear friend who has moved to the Grand Caymans. So, you can't really feel too sorry for her. There we go. All right. Boom. The Clover Club. Now this is going to sit and settle up, and I'm just going to give it a minute to do that and just ramble on a little bit more. Because that's what this is all about. It's just about me talking, engaging with you guys, having some fun, a little bit of sociability, while we're not doing what we would normally be doing. Wow, I'm definitely out of shape after shaking that. So, how are we doing? Yep, we're separating nicely. So again, for those of you who missed the beginning, I'm going to try and post this to YouTube later. If not, it'll be here on my story. It'll be on my feed. So we did up a riff on a Boulevardier. See that discipline? I didn't even take a sip that time because I'm saving that for later. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to dump my ice out and I'm going to strain it back into the mixing glass for later. Responsible consumption. There we go. See? There we go. All right. So we made our riff on a Boulevardier, which was our bourbon, our Campari, and our Tia Maria in place of sweet vermouth to give it that nice chocolate orange note. Fantastic. Then we took our Romeo's gin, which is a very citrus forward gin, fresh lemon juice, homemade raspberry syrup, and that's super easy to do. Take some raspberries, throw them in a pot, half a cup of sugar, half a cup of water, boil it all up, put it in your blender, strain it, get rid of the seeds and as much of the solids as you can, and boom. And this will last for a good week or so. It's great in cocktails. You can use this in a salad dressing, vanilla ice cream, anywhere you would want raspberries. All right, so now this has had a chance to settle. We're getting a little bit more of that separation. And sorry, now I got to go in on this one. Oh yeah, that's sunshine. That gin is there. Such a great backbone. You still get a hint of that juniper. Those bright citrus notes really pick up the lemon. They also pick up some of the tartness in that raspberry. So I get that fresh raspberry flavor, that beautiful red berry, a little bit of that fresh tartness. So even though it's been cooked with a syrup, it's not super sugary. It doesn't taste artificial or chemical or whatever, because this is just three things: raspberries, sugar, water, cooked. Boom, done. Beautiful, beautiful flavors. I am going to drink this one because, well, A, it's too good not to, and I love raspberries, but B, egg white cocktails don't sit very well for a long period of time. And if you're not a bartender, if you're not in the industry, maybe you're not aware of this. The acid in the citrus will actually start to ceviche or cold cook that egg white. So if you've had a sour, a Clover Club, a White Lady, a Di Serrano sour, I don't know, and you let it sit for a while, and you go back, and it's starting to have a bit of that egg smell, and the white on top has gotten a little bit firm. That's that egg white being ceviche'd or cold cooked by the citric acid in the lemon juice. Marty, how you doing? Stevie, nice to see you. I'm just chatting, just made up a fresh Clover Club. I hope you all are well. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day to everybody. So we made up a Clover Club, and just before that, I did up a riff on a Boulevardier one last time. I did 3/4 of an ounce of Maker's Mark because I used the Private Select, a little bit higher proof, a little bit warmer, Campari, and in place of sweet vermouth, good old Tia Maria, because I love it, and it turns the Boulevardier into a giant chocolate orange cocktail from Terry's, and it's fantastic. But I'm going to set that aside and save it for later. And now, I'm going to go sit outside in the sun and enjoy some of this beautiful weather that we're having. Go get some sunshine of your own at a safe distance from everybody else. Be safe, everybody, please. And I'll be back on Friday. We're going to do a Di Serrano Fizz just because I haven't done one in so long and I miss it. And I'm going to come up with something else fun and maybe a guest speaker. We're not sure yet. My pleasure, Anthony. Hope you're keeping well, buddy. Say hi to the crew at Gertie's for me if you're talking to them. But yeah, we're going to do Di Serrano Fizz here on my personal channel. And then, yeah, like I said, we'll do a fun Friday cocktail. In fact, I'm going to post a challenge to all of you coming up in my next story shortly, and you can help me build the cocktail together, and we'll make it sort of interactive that way, and you can see the results here Friday, 6 o'clock. Peace, everybody. Have a good night, and be safe.